first thing I'll show you is how to wind this clock. So I'll just move the camera over here to the left side. Try to get a good angle here. All right. So when the weight gets down to the floor, of course the clock will stop. It will run for at least 25 hours if you wind it all the way up to that center shaft. And the way I do it is I stand over here to the right side of the clock and grab the frame right here above the winding crank. You got to stick a finger out, maybe, just to keep this wheel from turning backwards as you're winding. So you stick out the finger to do that as you hold the clock frame steady. And just wind the weight all the way up to the center shaft like that. Then the pendulum may be stopped as you're winding the clock. There's no power to it, so you just give it a little push like that to get it started. Now, one thing I'm going to show you also, up above, this weight here, this little weight dangles down, and it's possible, like during winding or if it gets jiggled, this weight can possibly wind around the shaft. I'll just show you like that. So it's kind of twisted around, and then you start the clock up and it may not run right. The pendulum may not be balanced correctly, and it may stop. Also, the weight, if it's twisted around like that, it just causes extra drag on the motion of the pendulum. So if you notice it stops mysteriously, that's the first thing to check, I'd say. Just look up there, see if you need to unwind that weight. Bring it back around like that. It won't happen just with normal running of the clock. But if it gets bumped or something, or when the pendulum is started up, if it's pushed pretty hard or something like that, or if the clock just gets jiggled, that can happen. It's just something to alert you about. Might be just a good idea after winding to routinely check that weight to make sure it's hanging right. And I'll show you about setting the hands. You just do that by turning the minute hand, the longer hand, around. You can go forward or backward, like that. The hour hand is just on a tapered shaft. It's on tight. But if it gets bumped, it can slip like that, and it can come loose just by working its way forward. So, let me see if I can make sure I'm showing that close. So if that happens, you can just hold the gear here to keep that from turning against the other gear while you do this, and then push the hand further onto the shaft, and that will tighten it up. And then to make sure it's lined up correctly, so it's not pointing like halfway between the hours, that kind of thing. What I do is I like to line both hands straight up vertical, like 12 o'clock. So you can hold the gear, move this hour hand until it's pointing straight up, like that, showing 12 o'clock. And then you can set the time from there to whatever time it is. Let's see, now a couple of other things. Balancing the pendulum. I'll show you that quickly. Now, if you look and see as it's running, those two legs that lift up alternately from the surface of the wheel here, if you look and see that they're lifting up about the same distance, then you know the pendulum is in balance. If one is, lifting up way up high like that, and the one on the other side just barely lifts up and barely releases, then you know the pendulum is kind of swinging too far to one side or the other. In this case, it would be swinging too far to the right up there to bring that left side lever up so high. I'm just pulling on this string here. Now, to correct that, and it may not ever need to be done, but sometimes in big changes in humidity, it's possible that the pendulum could get a little off balance. So if you notice the clock mysteriously stops and you start it up and it's ticking, but the pendulum has for some reason stopped, and it's not that weight up above that that can be wound around. This is the next thing to check, is the balance of the pendulum, to see if those levers lift up about the same distance. You can correct that by moving this string to the right or to the left. I'm going to move it way over to the right like that. Now you can see it won't even run at all. This left side lever is coming way up, and the one on the right doesn't even release at all. So I'll move this way over to the left, and now it's a tapered shaft, so it's going to get loose here. You don't want it to be loose, so you can just tighten that knot. It's a slip knot. I'm pulling on the string, pushing the knot up to make it nice and tight. And now I have it way too far to the left, so you can see that the one lever barely releases, and that one then comes way up high. So it just has to be tweaked a little. Move it back to the right. It's getting closer. Move it back a little more. Almost there. And that should about do it there. Yeah, that's in balance now, pretty good. And then the speed adjustment is this little knob down here hanging at the bottom of that shaft. It's just on by friction. You can wiggle it and loosen it, and if you move it up, I'm going to mark it with my thumb because I have it real close now. So you can wiggle it and move it up. That will make the clock run slower. Bring it down to run faster, and you can just try moving it an eighth of an inch, and that will make quite a bit of difference, and see how that goes. If it's, let's say, 10 minutes off, try moving it 10 minutes off after a day. Just try moving it a little bit, like an eighth of an inch or even less. And you can get it pretty close. If you tweak that weight, it should be possible to get the time within a couple minutes a day. Now, I'll talk a little bit about moving this clock. If you want to just move it around from one place to another, come around behind by the weight here, grab the frame, front and back, and you can just lift it straight up, and move it around. It's possible to walk around with it and set it down wherever you want it to be. If you ever need to move this clock to some other place, so it has to be put into a vehicle, I would say, here, I'll move the camera back again. The whole thing should just be left together. Don't take anything apart, except the weight, I suppose. pushes all the way down, you've got a lot of string to play with. This weight can just be carried around separately. And it may not, so one person can carry the clock, and another person carry the weight. And then the whole clock can be laid down like this. It can just be laid on its back. I'll move the weight back here. I'm just going to do it a little bit here, show you. The whole thing can be laid on its back. It's just, you have to make sure that you have some kind of support holding the top of the frame when it's laid down. So none of the parts, the pendulum or the wheels or anything, have any of the weight on them. And then this little weight can just be put up here or hung down in the middle somewhere. And then you can lay the whole thing down with support on top. And don't try taking off the pendulum. I would say, if you don't need to, because it's kind of tricky, making sure that that the suspension strings are in the right position when you hang the pendulum back on again. I'll bring the camera over and show you that a little bit about the suspension strings. And another thing about the weight, I'll show you too. I'll just show you these. The pendulum is hung from these two strings up here that are attached to, see if that'll come in focus. Come on, camera. Come on. It must be too close here. All right, there we go. This string comes up around the top of this peg, and then down under, and then goes up through that slot, and then there's a knot in it up on the top, and everything's just real tight and close like that. I would say if this ever is going to be taken off, that take pictures of these, of both sides, the front and the back, where it's hanging, just to make sure you have that exact same configuration. So you're wrapping around this side of the peg, not wrapping around the other side, coming over this side of this peg and not wrapping it around the other way. It has to be exactly the same as it's hung right now in order for it to work. There's another view of it there. And then the one in the back is the same way. Now I have this let down a little, this actually gets turned, and bring that up closer like that. There. So the string wraps around the top peg this way, and then comes down around this side of this peg and up through the slot. So that's crucial. That has to be exactly the same. So I would recommend never taking the pendulum off, ever, even when if the clock is ever moved. Now I'm going to show you one more thing here about the weight. Bring the camera down, because when I lifted and set the weight down and then lifted it up again, the string came off the pulley. And I might be able to get it on the pulley this way. If I can let out some length here. Maybe I can get it down below it to get it in the groove on the pulley. It's kind of hard though. If this ever comes off, it would only be if the weight is lifted up and there's slack in the string like I just did. And so, oh, there I got it. This peg can also be pounded out. Use a dowel and a hammer, and you can pound that axle of the pulley. You can pound that out too, and just take the pulley off and put the string in the groove and put the pulley back on again and put the axle back in. But I was able to get the string wrapped around the pulley just by feeding it down below, and then I can start winding it up here. There. Now it's okay. I got it hanging there. And that's the main. Those are the main things about the clock: keeping it running, keeping it adjusted. If I think of anything else, I'll have to make another video. But I think that should do it.